evidence and also other evidence for it. That's the eastern branch, and then the western branch we think is made up of these two, a western, again, a western division of that, which is North Caucasian and Basque, and implicitly other languages of Europe that have been submerged mainly by Indo-European. And then the eastern branch of the western branch is Burushu-Yeniseian, Burushaski in Pakistan, and Yeniseian in the middle of Siberia. And grammatically and lexically, they have very many things in common, just as Basque and North Caucasian do. So George Starostin of Moscow has done calculations of using a 50 basic word list, which of course includes eye, ear, and these other basic words I've been discussing. And he came up with this tree, which is just another way of showing this tree in a horizontal manner rather than a vertical. So within the dene-caucasian macrofamily, Basque and North Caucasian, which are highlighted in yellow, Basque and North Caucasian, are thought to make up a subgroup. And George Starostin of Moscow calculates that this split here between the ancestor of Basque and the ancestor of North Caucasian was about 6,880 BC, thus almost 9,000 years ago. And I'm sure there's some margin of error. It could be hundreds of years, if not more or less. There was a French authority on Basque named René Lafont. And this is what he concluded about Basque in 1949, that the Basque language is not indigenous to the Basque country. It is a language adopted from another civilization, superior, and I don't, maybe superior isn't a good word. But the point is that a new culture was adopted. Lafont thought that this culture was megalithic, which is now dated about 4,500 to 4,000 BC. Peter Rowley Conway of England, an archaeologist, suggests instead it was the Cardial culture about 1,000 years earlier, that is 5,500 or to 4,900 BCE. So here's a map of the Cardial culture, originally from Anatolia, which is now Turkey. And it arrived on the eastern Spanish coast around 5,500 BCE by boat, and they think these people came on boats across from place to place along here, what they call leapfrog colonization. The Cardial culture arrived on the eastern Spanish coast around 5,500 BCE, bringing Neolithic culture, including domesticated cattle, cows, goats, sheep, and swine. and cereals and pulse crops. Wheat, barley, things of that sort, and beans and peas. This is according to Raouli-Conwy. So this is the timeline. Raouli-Conwy and I have come up with. So the first date is George Starostin's date of the linguistic split based on linguistic evidence of Proto-Vasconic, the ancestor of Basque, from Proto-Caucasian, so about 6,880 BCE. About 1,000 years later, we have the arrival of the first wave of the cardiac Neolithic culture on the Riviera coast of southern France. This is according to archaeological dating. Then about 300 years later, the arrival of cardial Neolithic culture on the eastern coast of Spain. And by about 4,900 BCE, this culture had arrived as far as the Bay of Biscay, the coast of Biscay. So when we look at Basque cultural vocabulary, I think the first layer is this Caucasian, dene-caucasian layer. And we see, for example, the Basque word for cow, a behi, a bay. And avar is bots'i, cattle, plural. This is a strange change between the t's and the h. I don't have time to go into it now, but it is a recurrent correspondence. We see it again in the word for tongue, the h and the ts. Our word for tongue is mitzi, and Basque is mihi. Then the Basque word for bull, sesen. In Tindi, for example, Caucasian language, the word for cow is zini, and similar words for cow in other Caucasian languages. The Basque word for a lamb, I know you could tell me more about the semantic, it's a certain age of lamb or something. And the first part is bil, and Bejta, Caucasian languages, and others have bitl for sheep, ahari for ram in compound words is ahal. In Hunzib and other Caucasian languages, we have chor. And again, that correspondence of the h and the ch that we saw from Chechen. It goes throughout all the other languages as well. Sikiro for a castrated ram. In Andi, the word tsekir means kid, baby goat. And finally, Basque word for pig and swine is urde. Hunzib, for example, has butlu, the same meaning. And again, the urth and the tl is a recurrent correspondence. We see that in many other words. And then for grain crops and pulse crops, we have these similarities. Basque bihi means grain or seed, not in all dialects. In Tindi, for example, bechin means barley. Basque gari in compound words is gal. And galburu is wheat. Tindi, for example, has eru for wheat. olho for oats in Suberoan, for example, olo in other dialects. And West Caucasian languages have this strange sound as a hlua, means millet. It's a slightly different grain. And then Basque, garagar for barley. And some Caucasian languages have like ir for a specific kind of wheat, a winter wheat. And then finally, ilhar, at least in Zuberoan, you have the LH for peas, various words for peas and beans throughout Basque, ilyar or ilyar. And for example, it says word for peas is hil. And then also the words for food processing, well, agricultural words, agricultural tools. The Basque word for hoe or spade is something like aitzur. Aquac has ertze, meaning a wooden plow. Also, the word for harrow in Basque and in Avar, I believe, are the same. This is quite interesting word for threshing floor, larain, Archie, Lesgian language of Dagestan, has tlorom for a threshing board. The word for sieve, used for straining the grain, winnowing the grain after it's threshed, is bahe. And sahur has wehwa for the same meaning. And perhaps the most interesting Basque eho or eo, to grind. And in some dialects there's a word ehara or ehara for mill, the thing you grind the grain with. Chechen has, for example, ah, to grind, and her, mill. English language has the same, basically the same word for grind and for mill. So this is a morphological pair, the verb and the noun, that is derived from the same verb. I mentioned before the Burushaski language of Pakistan. These people are very high up in the mountains in Pakistan. What is it? 3,000 meters or something. And they farm on the terraces. They raise grains, and apricots are very big. So you see the apricots drying on their roofs. The